everyone, I'm Pastor Ibukun Adewusi. Welcome to Loveseat with me.
My husband always says this: for anointed people, the things happen at appointed times. He needs to know his vision. Not just desire to have a vision, but actually know his vision.
You want to ensure that, you've prayed about this person, right? You want to get that confirmation. Everyone, I trust you're having a wonderful day. I'm Pastor Ibukun Adewusi and welcome back to Loveseat. I'm so excited because today we're starting a new topic titled Financial Management and Relationship. And this topic is very, very, very dear to my heart just because I also went through a situation whereby I was in a financial rut and it was very, very stressful for me. But eventually the Lord brought me out of it. But I'm going to give you all the gist in regards to that. But before we get into those juicy gist, I want us to just really go over how financial management actually affects relationship. So let's dive right in. Now you might be wondering, okay, what is the relationship between, managing your finances and relationship? And that is a fantastic question. Thank you so much for asking. The first point I want us to talk about today is it puts a lot of pressure or strain on relationship. Now, when I talk about relationship, it doesn't only mean romantic relationship. That definitely includes romantic relationship, but it's not excluded to romantic relationship. This can be a relationship with God. It can be a relationship with other people in your life. So platonic relationship for sure, definitely that also includes those as well. And I want us to go into scriptures to look at an example of a person that financial mismanagement actually affected his relationship with God. And the person we're going to be studying today is Judas Iscariot. Remember that guy? Yes, Judas Iscariot. Let's turn our Bibles to John chapter 12, verse 4 to 6. We're going to be reading in the NKJV version. So it says, "But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him," and this him is Jesus, said, "Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" Now let's go a little bit back into what happened here. There was a lady that came, Mary, and she came with an alabaster box, right? And she was just so appreciative of Jesus, and she broke that box filled with oil and was just poured it on Jesus's feet and was using her hair to wipe his feet. And Judas Iscariot and probably other disciples kind of were like, why would you do that? Now it was a very, very expensive one. In some versions it says it was a year's wage, so it was very, very expensive. But let's see the reason why he was saying this. Now this is verse 6. "This he said not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box, and he used to take what was put in it." Now, Judas Iscariot was probably maybe he was assigned the treasurer. Wrong position. He was assigned the treasurer, and so he knew the money that was coming in, he knew how much they had and all of those kind of stuff. So the moment Mary, poured the oil before Christ, and he was looking like this is a waste of money. But it was not really because he cared about the poor. It was mainly because his eyes were on the money box, and he was wondering, if this money had come into this box, hey, this will have been a good deal for me, right? And he had already been helping himself. He had very, very sticky hands. Now you might be wondering, why was Judas even doing this? I don't really know. Maybe he had, maybe he was a gambler, for example, and he had some debts that he needed to pay. Maybe he had just, squandered his money, and, he just thought that, this was, free money that he had access to. Whatever the reason was, either way, he had a bad relationship with money, and definitely that also affected his relationship with Christ. We can see that eventually when he had already started this act of, stealing and all of that, but eventually when the Pharisees were looking for an opportunity to actually, kill Christ, he became that opportunity. He actually went after this incident. If you read on, you will see that he went after this incident, he went to the Pharisees and actually now told them, that he was available. right? And they paid him. Now, that money itself was actually betrayal money, right? You can imagine if he had actually had a good management with his finances, if he had the right structure in place as well. Now, and it's so funny, as I was preparing for this and all, I was just wondering, I said, I wonder, remember there was a story whereby Christ, there was someone that was trying to, ask a question, mainly to kind of like trap Christ, right? And we said, okay, fine, do we pay taxes to Caesar and all of that? And eventually, Christ, answered and said, obviously, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, right? And then said, just for the sake of, technically, I shouldn't really be paying taxes, but just for the sake of righteousness and just to keep you guys, short. He probably didn't say this. This is my own version of things, right? He told one of his disciples to go, to pull the first fish that he finds from the river, right, and open the mouth and bring out money. Now I wondered, maybe because Christ was looking like, I know the amount that was in this money box, but somehow the numbers are not adding up. And because obviously Mr. Judas was actually helping himself with the money box. So it actually puts a lot of strain on relationship. And that also includes our relationship with God. The many people that are in relationships, and a lot of, especially even marriages sometimes, whereby they're going through a lot of friction, mainly because maybe one partner is not managing the resources properly. Remember I said that this is not just only excluded to romantic relationship, right? This also includes platonic relationship. There's some friendships that have actually divided mainly because, one person owed them another money, and then they said, oh yeah, I'll pay you back, and it just seems like it's a rat race as well. So it puts a lot of pressure and strain on relationships as well. Now, the same thing even with our relationship with God, right? A lot of people, there's been a lot of different debates about do we tithe or do we not tithe and all. But even a lot of people want to do that, but sometimes mainly because of either some mismanagement of things, they are not able to do that. And as a result of that, it actually takes a lot of financial blessings that they are actually meant to also get as well. So definitely, mismanagement of money actually affects our relationship with God or with other people as well. And the second point I wanted to highlight today is it can lead people to compromise. It can lead people to actually compromise. And an example of a person that went through such situation was Abraham. If we turn our Bibles to Genesis chapter 12, verse 10 to 16, we'll quickly read that NLT. And it says, at that time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abraham to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. As he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abraham said to his wife Sarah, look, you're a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, let's kill him, then we can have her. So please tell them you are my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you. And sure enough, when Abraham arrived in Egypt, everyone noticed Sarah's beauty. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praise to Pharaoh the king, and Sarah was taken into his palace. Then Pharaoh gave Abraham many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. Now you could see here that Abraham was, there was pressure. Now there was famine in the land. And because of the famine in the land, you can say maybe in our time, it could have been, or interest rates went up, or things, there's been inflation, whatever it is, but there was pressure from the famine. And as a result of that pressure, obviously that will have affected maybe finances that they had as well. That actually led him to go to Egypt. And even as he was approaching Egypt, right, that made him to compromise. But really the root of that was because of the pressure from the famine. So sometimes some people are actually pressured because of financial situations that are not ideal, and as a result of that, sometimes they compromise. They're believers, but they're just like, what, if I can just lie it might be a white lie. It's just because, I just need this, right? So because of what they need, most of the time, sometimes they want to compromise, right? So it actually, financial mismanagement can lead people to a point of compromise. We saw that also with Judas, whereby he compromised his loyalty with Christ, mainly because of his love for money. Now, don't get me wrong, money is good. We need money. In this life, you need to kind of exchange things, right? And money is that exchange, is that currency that we use in exchanging things, whether for services, for goods, and also money is definitely needed, right? But when there is a love, now, love and having money is very different, but the love of money completely different as well. Now, remember I told you that I was going to tell you my own personal journey with financial freedom. And let's go back to how it all started. I found myself, I got into a business venture, and, I got all the details, or some of the details that were needed for this business venture, how much it will be, blah, 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 and all. And I thought, okay, I had all the information, and, I went my merry way, right? And little did I know that I did not have the full picture of things, right? And there were some certain payments that were needed to be paid. Now, it was a venture whereby I started it in one city. Eventually I moved and changed my number, changed my address, and didn't get any notifications and all. And it began to pile up, it began to pile up without my knowledge. Eventually, when I came to the knowledge of it, the bills had piled up, and I started receiving, calls from collections and all. And trust me, it's those ones whereby, you picked up the first call and, they say, oh, you owe this money and all of that. And you're like, what, me? Like, where is that coming from? And then they begin to state, this is it, this is the amount and all. And it got so bad to the point whereby I now knew, like, if I see any call coming into my phone that I had never saved, I would either ignore it because it was just overwhelming, or sometimes I will pick it up and I will not say anything because you just want to hear the voice, right? So if they start saying, is this Ibukun, that, oh my God, this person doesn't really know me, and you just kind of cut the phone and all. And it was so bad, and it got to a point whereby, now this had happened before I got married, probably shortly before I got married, or maybe slightly after I got married and all. And I realized that's when it came to revelation that, oh my goodness, I owe so much and all. And it was so messy. I didn't know where to start from. And it was that time whereby I just felt like I wished I could just close my eyes and I'll wake up and say, oh, wow, it was just a dream. But it was not a dream. And it was not going anywhere. And the calls kept on coming. And it was very stressful. And I remember one of those days I was in a service. We're in the ministry then, while we're transitioning before we got into ministry and all. And I remember we're in a service and the pastor there was sharing the word, and he said, a lot of times some people are they're in front of the Red Sea and they're praying that God will just take away the Red Sea, right? And so that way they don't deal with it. But sometimes God will not take away the Red Sea. You will have to walk through that Red Sea, but he will be with you and he will guide you by his wisdom. And those words really resonated with me, because it just felt like he knew my story. He was talking about me. And I remember, and I said, okay, God, so it means that, I've been praying and hoping that this situation would just disappear, but it's not disappearing. So it sounds like I have to walk through the situation, but I don't know where to start. And I remember I had a conversation briefly with my husband. He said, why don't you just look at it and begin to deal with it? And I said, okay. It was very stressful, I won't lie. And I remember I went to the guest room of our home then, and I just sat on the floor. I didn't even have time to even sit on a chair. I just sat on the floor because I was in a desperate situation. I sat on the floor and I brought all the bills. And I just laid all of them, and I began to open one after the other. Now, one of the things that fear does is it really exaggerates situations, right? Because when you have a bill that you haven't paid, the next time they'll keep on sending those bills, and it will keep on piling up, mainly because they're just forwarding the previous one. So I had so many meals of the same thing, and all I really needed per maybe vendor and all is just that one, the current one. But because it had piled up, so every time I saw a new entry, it just felt like, oh, another one again. It was the same multiple companies, but same company, but they kept on sending the bill, and it just felt like, oh my gosh, it was overwhelming. So I laid all of them in front of me on the floor, and I began to open them. And I began to open them, and I began to sort them. And I needed to say, okay, fine, how much did I owe? How much did I owe for this company? How much did I owe for this company? What was the current situation? And then I started making calls, and to get the current status of things and all. Okay, how much do I owe? And some of them would say, oh no, you cannot. We can't restore the service until you pay this amount. So I needed to know what was even going on at first, right? And then from there, I now started that work. Now, to be sincere, it didn't take one day. It wasn't a one-day job. It took a long time, but I eventually got out of it. And I believe that as a result of that experience of mine, that really welled up a huge passion to ensure that people that might be in any financial rut actually can come out of it. And I believe it, I strongly believe it, that anyone in any financial rut can actually come out of it. The fact that you're in a situation now does not necessarily mean that you will remain in that situation forever. In my mind, it felt like as if this was the end. This was the end. Like I'm never coming out of this. But eventually, I came out of it. It took work. It took understanding of the situation. But eventually, I came out of it. And as a result of that, I've had so many counseling sessions with different people that have been in financial situations that are not ideal. And we've had to look at that, settle down, we look at the situation and all, and I tell them that you will come out of this. And there's so many testimonies of people that have actually come out of whatever financial rut that they were in. And it was such a passion of mine. But I realized that I couldn't have meetings for so many people one-on-one because it takes time, right? And that's the reason why I'm actually having this video, just to ensure that as many people can gain the knowledge that they require to ensure that they come out of any financial bondage or any financial rut that they might find themselves in. God truly wants to bring you into financial freedom. That's his desire. That is his desire. And I want you to hold on to that whatever situation you are in, you will come out of it by the special grace of God. Now, I'm going to share some tips that actually really helped me, and I'm really trusting God that this will be also very helpful as well in your situation or anyone that you know that might need this as well. And the first thing I want to say is determine why you want financial freedom and flourishment. It's extremely important to know the why. A lot of times we want to let's quickly deal with this situation. Let's quickly end it. Let's pay all the debts, all of that, which is good. There's nothing wrong about that. But if you do not understand why do you even want to be debt free? If you don't understand why, it is very possible to actually find yourself in that situation again. I've had situations whereby we worked on things and, debts were paid, but because there was a lack of why, right, they found themselves in that situation again. So the first thing I always say to people that come to me is, why do you even want to be out of debt? Extremely, extremely important. Why? What is your why? What is your why? Your why is the driving force to ensure that anything that you do, you can achieve it and you can replicate it. There's some times that it will be hard. I'm not going to lie. There's some times it will be hard because there's some things you're just like, I just want to kind of spend a little bit, right? But your why will be that reminder to you that why am I actually taking the steps? Why am I taking the steps of sacrifice, right? And so it keeps you on track as well. Now, there are two suggested whys that I have. The first one is your short-term whys. Now, your short-term whys are things like, I want to pay off my debt. So if you're in debt, you want to pay it off. But sometimes some people are not necessarily in debt, right? There might be other reasons. For example, it could be, I want to buy a house. I want to get a car. I want to start my business and I need some capital or whatever it is for my business. Or I want to even build my business and I need finances, obviously, to kind of like, sponsor that as well. I want to get some investment. Whatever your short-term whys are, make sure that you want to know that why, and you want to also write it down as well. And another why is your long-term whys. Now, examples of that is, I want to leave an inheritance for my children. I don't want to leave debt for my children. So maybe you want to have like savings or investment or whatever it is for your kids, just for the future. Or it could be, I want to be a kingdom financier. Very amazing. That is a fantastic why as well. If you're going to be a financier, it means you need to kind of have the dough as well. So that's the first thing. Determine your why. Right. The second point I have here is know and assess your current financial state. This is so crucial. Remember that sometimes when we're in situations, we're so overwhelmed by it, and we just don't want to look at it. We don't want to be aware of what it is, because already seeing the bills coming in is already overwhelming. And trust me, I understand. Right? Remember I told you that I had a number of bills just pile up, and it just felt like I was like, God, please just have mercy and all. But to be sincere, it was not prayer that was going to deal with that. I needed to sit and actually look at the current state. So know and assess your current financial statement. I want us to read a scripture from Ezekiel chapter 37. We're going to read from verse 1 to 3, NKJV, and it says, "The hand of the Lord came upon me and brought me out in the spirit of the Lord and set me down in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. Then he caused me to pass by them all around, and behold, they were very many in the open valley, and indeed they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? So I answered, O Lord God, you know." This story is such an important one, because God brought him to the valley of the dry bones and made him to look at the situation, the current state. And when he looked and he passed by the valley, he realized that those bones were they were very many. So it could be like debts that are very many, and they were very dry. Meaning it might be, your account might be looking like it's red, and might be red, or you have gone into overdraft or whatever it is, and you're just like, God, where do I start? But you need to actually know the current state. Before you can make any transformation and all, you need to first know your current state. Just like if you've ever gotten a personal trainer, before they actually start training you, one of the first things they do is actually a baseline assessment. They want to know where you are at first, before they now begin to make improvement. And the very same thing applies as well. You need to know your current state. And what do I mean by current state? Right, this means that you're looking at what is your current income. Now, typically when I advise people, especially in regards to financial management, I will ask them for maybe 3 months of statement, their bank statement, because I want to kind of get a full blown picture of the situation. What is the situation? What is the income? What are they making? So those are some questions I ask them as well. And those are the same thing you can definitely do as well. You want to know what are you making? Sometimes some people actually don't even know what they make, right? So you need to know, how much am I making every month? Are you being paid twice every month, or is it a monthly one? How much are you making? What is your income? You need to know that number first. Now, in financial management, there is nothing like ignorance is bliss. That does not apply. You need to actually know. So it's extremely important. The next thing I want you that one needs to know is, what are your expenses? So the first one is your income. What are you making, right? The next one is, what are your expenses? And when I say expenses, there are 3 categories that I break it down. The first one is your recurring expenses. So these are your must-haves. These are expenses that occur every month, and they are must-haves. They are expenses that you cannot do without. So for example, they could be your rent, your mortgage, it could be your car costs, maybe gas for your car, if you're financing the car, how much you pay monthly and all. It could be insurance, so it could be your car insurance, it could be your home insurance, it could be your tenant insurance. Now, if you're a tenant, if you're renting in a place, please, it's very important, get a tenant insurance. It's extremely important. It's an extra protection for you, right? It could be your groceries. You definitely need to eat, right? So groceries. It could be your phone bills. You need to kind of stay in touch with people. It could be your utilities, so maybe your light bills, your internet, water, gas, whatever it is. And then this important one is a must. Your tithe. People might be like, usually tithe is one of the things that people are like, man, pastor, I don't want to pay tithe because things are not adding up. But tithe is actually extremely important. It's a must. And I say it's a must because when you sow into God's, when you give God what belongs to him, the Bible says that bring the tithes to my storehouse and test me and try me if I will not open the floodgates of heaven for your behalf. So it's a must, because if you want to have financial flourishment, you need to tithe. Extremely important. Now the next category is the nice to have. Now when I say nice to have, it means that it's really nice to have it, but it's not a must, right? It would be nice if I can have that, make life comfortable and enjoyable, but it's honestly not a must. And examples of such are eating out, right? You want to go to the restaurant, maybe it's your birthday or a friend's birthday or whatever it is. It could be Uber, right? So you need transportation. You're like, I don't want to take the bus, I just need someone to pick me up and drop me off. Uber. Maybe for the ladies, actually for the guys as well, your hair, right? I have some funny stories about hair, but I won't dive into those and all. It could be your nails. You want kind of do your nails. You want someone just pampering you and all. It could be vacation. Someone might be like, Pastor, vacation is important. It is a nice to have. I tell people that, if you're if you're trying to go to Hawaii, and maybe you can afford Hawaii, increase the thermostat in your home, right? And Hawaii has been created for you. So it's a nice to have. It's not a must, right? And then the third category is the debts. What debts do you have, right? And debts, examples of debt could be student loans, right? Credit cards, line of credit, and or even money that you're owing to other people. So maybe friends, family, co-workers, and all. You need to actually now have, you need to know what those things are. Now, the third category of things that you need to also be aware of is also, do you have any existing savings? And you might be like, Pastor, how does that even relate? Because if the person is trying to get out of that, honestly, I've actually seen situations whereby they do actually have money in savings, but then the debts are actually piling up as well, right? So you want to find out, as we finding out, okay, what is your income? What are your expenses? Are there also existing savings that you have as well, right? Very, very, very important. Very, very, very important. And now the third point. So with the first one that we talked about was, developing your why. The second one is know and assess your current financial state. And now the third point that we're going to have or talk about is build a healthy financial structure and system. Now you might find yourself, there are two categories of people. One, the first category might be, I don't have any debts, so I'm good. Maybe not. Right? Because yes, I've met some people whereby they don't have any debt. So no credit card, no line of credit, no debt like that. However, there is no structure in the finances. So as the money comes in, they spend the money that comes in, right? So there's really nothing, no savings, no investment, nothing like that, right? That's the first category of people. And the second category of people is, they actually do have debts, right? And they want to build a structure as well. So they're interested in building a structure for their finances. Now, for the first category of people, this is where your why comes in extremely handy. It's very, very important because yes, you might not have any debt, but it's also crucial that when you have a why, that is the direction, that is the vision of why you want financial bliss as well. So very, very important as well. Now let's look at how we can actually build a healthy financial structure and system. And the first point I'm going to talk about is determine if you're biting more than you can chew. And what does that mean? Right? This is now, remember that we've looked at our income, we've looked at our expenses, we've also looked at our savings, right? You now need to look at, am I making enough income, or are my expenses higher than my income? You need to look at that. Are you biting more than you can chew? Extremely, extremely important. Now, there's so many ways that you can, if you're biting more than you can chew, there's so many ways you can bring it into equilibrium, right? For example, it could be either you increase your income, right? So I've had some conversations with people whereby I look at, I'm like, okay, how much are you making? And then we find out that, okay, fine, it's a part-time job. So instead of a part-time job, we now start looking for a full-time job, right? So that income can be increased. So that's one way whereby you can deal with that and to bring things into a balance. Or it might mean reducing your expenses. Now, when I say reducing your expenses, you may be like, reducing the expenses, really, I don't want to do that. Well, we might have to do that. And there's so many ways you can go about this. Sometimes it could be for your must-haves, right? Remember that those are things that you cannot do without. For your must-haves, you might have to look at, are there alternative ways of still getting your must-haves but less expensive? So for example, it might be a car insurance that you have, and you might have to look at maybe some other companies that are providing insurance but at a cheaper rate, or let's say less expensive rates as well. So you might want to look at that, whereby you're still meeting those must-haves but you're just getting it at a less expensive rate as well. So you have to look at what are your must-haves, right? Are there alternative ways of still meeting those needs but way lesser rate as well? And for your nice-haves, for your nice-haves, it's still important, but there's some aspects whereby you might have to cut it for the time being. It might be a temporary cut, right, until things are back into this the way it should be, right? But you might have to give away some things. So for example, some subscriptions. I'll give an example. Let's say your Spotify subscription or your Apple Music subscription or your Prime, is it Prime delivery and Prime subscription? You might have to actually give away that for that time until things balance out. And you might be like, but it's just $10 here, it's $10 here or $15 here. Those are not big deals. Honestly, they all add up. So $10 here, $15 here, another $10 here, that already is $35, right? And if you're a lady, $35, that already can easily get you your nails if you wanted to do that. So there's so many things. You can use that for groceries, you can use that for eating out, whatever it is. There's so many ways you can use that. So you want to look at your nice to haves and look at it and say, okay, can I find alternative ways of still meeting that or completely cut it? Now, usually when I speak with people, I kind of make sure that I want to ensure that they still have some nice to have, because it's almost like when you're trying to lose weight, right? And they say, okay, fine, they just give you like, okay, just eat broccoli and chicken. Honestly, it's going to be boring, and sometimes it might not be so sustainable at times. So there's some nice apps whereby we look at the situation and we might have to make some adjustments to ensure that you can still have maybe some room for some nice have. It might not be everything, but it might be one of it. So it might be, okay, maybe every month we want to allot like $100 for eating out, right? And it means that if you cut off maybe this subscription here and this subscription here, or you find alternative ways of still getting that. So for example, you might be like, but Pastor, I need my music. Music is my channel of grace. I understand, but we can find alternative. Let me give you some tricks or some tips. Now, it might not happen. It might not, apply to all devices. So for some phones, you might not be able to really apply what I'm about to say, but you can get ad blockers, right? You can get your laptop, get your music, maybe you go on YouTube and get an ad blocker, and it blocks those ads, and you have like your free music for free, right? So there's some little things, there's some ways you can actually get what you still want, but really at reduced rate for you. It might be like for the ladies, but Pastor, my nails are very important. It is my brand. Okay, I understand. You might not have to go to that to that spa and get your nails done, but maybe you can actually get those clip-ons that you can actually glue on there and still make it look pretty as well. So just really finding creative ways, right, in still achieving what you really desire as well. So extremely, extremely, extremely important. So the first one that we just talked about is determine if you're biting more than you can chew. Now the next point is deal with debt, and this is extremely, extremely important. It's so important because a number of debts, whether it's credit card debts, line of credit, actually have a really, really high interest rate, right? I remember when I was going through that period of trying to get out of debt and all, that was when I realized that credit cards actually carry about 19 to 21% of interest. And I was like, oh my goodness, like that is huge. A lot of people don't actually know that, right? Line of credit, it varies based on, what the line of credit is and the company and all of that. So you want to quickly pay off your debt, right? Extremely, extremely important. So some of it, you might not be able to pay off everything all at once, but you can either start having like payment plans, right? So payment plans to ensure that your debts actually begin to reduce, especially those whereby you're accumulating interest on it. It's extremely important that you begin to either allot an amount towards paying off those debts, so that way you're reducing the amount of interest that you're paying on that as well. Now, while we're doing all of that, this is still keeping in mind that we're still taking care of our must-haves, right? Because remember, we've looked at the income, we've looked at your expenses, and they're must-haves. So your must-haves definitely have to be paid for, right? If we need to increase income, we increase income as well. We reduce our expenses wherever we need to cut off some things that needs to be cut off, or reduce them in ways of finding alternatives as well. And as you're doing that, you're realizing that your must-haves are still being met, right? But we're also ensuring that your debts are not your debts are also being dealt with as well. Very, very important as well. And as you're doing that, then the third point that I have here is gather the fragments. Extremely, extremely important. Gather the fragment, right? Especially when we're working towards like your short-term goals or your long-term goals and all, right? You need to gather the fragment. Every bit counts, right? Every bit counts. Sometimes you'll be so surprised to see where the fragments are, right? So remember I talked about like the maybe the subscription here, the $10 subscription here, the $10 subscription here, the eating out and all, and you might have to kind of like, you know, gather all of that. Now some of it will take a lot of sacrifice, and I understand that, but trust me, this will actually help a lot as well. This will ensure that as you gather them, as you start seeing that, oh wow, I didn't even realize that, oh, I eat out so much, right? I'm spending maybe $200 eating out, right? And then here, oh, this other subscription, by the time I added all of them together, that was another $50. And so that's already $250, and $250 goes a long way. That can already pay for your gas already, or that can even be allotted or set aside as savings as well, or even towards your debts if there are any debts that you have as well. So extremely, extremely important. Begin to gather it as well. It's extremely, extremely important as well that you begin to gather it, right? So where are the funds, where are your funds going to, right? What are the things that are must-haves? What are the things that are nice to have, right? And you begin to, you know, ensure that you can gather that and putting that towards, whether it's your home that you want to buy, whether it's your car that you want to buy, whether it's towards your business, whatever it is that is your why, right? You're now putting that towards it as well. Extremely, extremely important. Now I have some tips that I want to give just based on my own personal experience or even observation as well. The first thing is, if you're a student and you're leaving, you don't have to be a student, but if you're leaving with your parents and you're living rent-free and you are working, please, this is the time to begin to save. Extremely, extremely important, especially for those that maybe you're getting a student loan, you're living with your parents, you're not paying any rent and all. It is a fantastic, don't look at that money and say, okay, I'm just enjoying myself, I'm working, I'm making the dough, and I'm just going to be enjoying myself. This is the time to save, right? And I say it's so, so important, because as you begin to save, you realize that you are accumulating wealth. Now, when it's time to pay that student loan, you've already accumulated a number of money before you even get out of school. So by the time you get out of school, you already have enough that has been accumulated, and you can begin to even pay that off as well, without having the strain of, oh my gosh, there's this huge amount that I need to pay for. Now you might be like, well, Pastor, that's not my situation. I don't have any student loan. That's fine. Well, so far as you're working and you're living rent-free, please begin to save up. Save towards a home. Very, very important. Your own home. Extremely, extremely important. If you need advice or direction, this is the reason why I'm actually doing this video as well. Now, the second point that I want to say is work towards assets first and not liabilities. Work towards assets first and not liabilities. And what do I mean by that? I'll give an example. Getting your own home is an asset. Getting a new car is a liability. You might be like, what? Hey, Pastor, I've been thinking about my new car, you know, the smell of a new car. I understand. But getting your own home is important first. A car, you can get a used car. right? Just to move you from A to B, right? You can get a used car, but get your own home first. So far as you have saved up enough, I usually advise people that don't get into, liabilities that, it might be nice, it might be comfortable, but it's not an asset. So work on getting an asset first before any kind of liability, like cars or certain things like that. Very, very, very important. So today we've looked at how financial management actually affects relationship, or even mismanagement, affects relationship. I've shared my own personal journey towards financial freedom. I've looked at ways that we can work towards financial freedom and effective management. And this actually brings us to today's to the end of today's episode. And I hope that you've been blessed by today's video as well. And as always, as I say, make sure that you like, make sure that you share, make sure that you subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. I want to ensure that you're getting the new content as we release them. And very, very, very importantly as well is, please make sure that you comment in today's video. I want to hear your story. I want to hear your testimony. I want to hear what has blessed you from today and how you're actually even applying that in your life and also in the lives of other people as well. Once again, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you on the next episode. I love you. Mwah.